So, sir, you said that many of the students go on to do the PhD program. So, in Ivy League universities, there is a integrated PhD program in which you do the MS and then the PhD. But once they do the dual degree program here, do they get any advantage in PhD? Do they straight away go to PhD, or again they have to do the dual degree program?
Okay. It depends on the university. Some universities will require you to do another master's, but most universities will not. Like, for instance, I think Carnegie Mellon has, doubly has, Rice also has, but most other universities don't in the US if you go for PhD abroad. And most of our students in Canada, many of my dual degree students went to McGill. They didn't have to do a master's, they're just doing PhD.
So, most of the computer science PhD programs around the world do not require a master's to join PhD. Most, there may be exceptions. But those that require masters, the dual degree masters counts as masters. I don't think they, any of them do another masters. So this counts as coming with masters. We have, I know this for sure. We have sent several students to, say, Oxford and India, the French system. There they need a master's to do PhD, and they really welcome our student because they have a strong master's with lots of coursework and a thesis work. And in the PhD in most of European places, just start with research. There's no coursework. So it's a good match. They come very ready with all the coursework and background. They just start doing research.
So it's too early to ask the question here about placement. Whether these students are allowed to participate in campus placement just after 4th year or after 5th year they are allowed to participate in placement.
So they should. I wish most of the students will place themselves rather than through placement process. That's like Jawahar said, they want to be going to groups, and we also get requests for students of certain kind, etc. But if they want to sit for placement, they sit for placement close to when they are graduating, which is at the end in the middle of their 5th year. The placements happen in December here, right. So those who sit for placement do it at that point. But I hope they all none of them go to the regular placement. They want to place themselves. They want people to come here and for them.
Okay, thank you. So one more question. Once a student is selecting some topic or problem for his research work, whether he is allowed to switch to other topic during the research, or whether that will remain same for entire 3 years?
No, definitely they can shift. This has to be a joyous experience for both parties, for all parties concerned, right? Okay. So you join an advisor and you start working on something, and if your interests are slightly different, you may be able to switch to something else with the same advisor itself. Okay. If there is need to, for whatever reason you want to switch advisor, there is a process. You just have to talk to the advisor, and some other person have to, basically you have to find who's going to you. And so, we don't want to force anybody into anything, and right. It have to be their choice.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Like you gave example of your students, getting into IIS and choosing a different stream. Are there any examples of your dual degree students planning to get on to the management side and becoming product managers, doing their MBAs? Are there any precedents of such sort?
I don't remember any, but there must be. We have, maybe you want to say the commute story.
No, there are many people who actually choose different paths after dual degree thing. Many people who have completed very reasonable work, in a sense, very strong thesis, chose the path of entrepreneurship initially. And then they started companies, they kind of grew them, and then they felt the need to educate themselves in the management areas and so on. So we have a few examples of that kind, and there are certain people who are actually born to study management, but then they're stuck in some of the other programs, and they find their way rather after completing their MS program here to kind of get educated in those areas. So there are a bunch of examples. So
in the morning about the sources of funds for the institutes. So one of the point you mentioned that few projects are funded from different corporates. So is there any projects going on funded by government, the central government or state government?
yeah, actually, traditionally in many universities, government funding is very large compared to the industry funding. So typically the ratios would be 80 to 20, 85-15, and so on. But IIIT Hyderabad is quite different because getting government funding is relatively easy compared to getting the industry funding, because you really need to deliver something that's of value. But here, this is where we are actually improving our numbers. Maybe about 60-40 is the current ratio. So still we have a lot of funding coming from government. But the point to note here is we are also getting funding from industry. Very competitive funding from industry. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
So in other words, when I say government funding, I want to just make sure that all of us understand it is not free money that is coming in. It is against a proposal. It is something that what we wanted to do, and a large committee, a very credible committee, evaluates this proposal and then make sure that everything is in place, technical details as well as the financial details and so on. The moment this committee feels that this project and the team is worthy, then they actually give the project. And then this is competing among, the competition is among all the best institutions in the country. Right? So it's a competitive process, and then we get lots of funding through government agencies like that.
Okay, I mean, intention to ask, or rather one of the interest to ask this question is, I mean, one fine day, I mean, we would like to have a news on different media that IIT or IIIT students have come up with solution of transport problem in Hyderabad. So, I mean, just giving one example. So government funding projects means it will have much more impact in the society, and will be having much more coverage to make the institute well known to the society.
Absolutely. There are a lot of activity of that kind. Thank you for asking.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes. So my question is specific to CHD program. I was just CHD. So I'm just wondering why only 10 persons have been taken into this program. Why not more? It seems it's a slightly too little a number for a class to hold.
Well, whenever we start an experiment, we make sure that it goes well before we start expanding. Now, when the institute started in 1998, the first batch was only 50 students in a very well-known, tested program, which is computer science. CHD is an experiment where we are trying to combine a technical and a non-technical discipline. So we want to make sure things go well. So in the first offering we offered only to 10 students. Because this is also a program which has to be done carefully, because most of the students come with maths, physics, chemistry background. So a lot of humanities, thinking, training, all that has to be done. And we expect that to be a little intensive and maybe more one-on-one and so on. So these sort of things has to be done in a small class first before we expand numbers. We, yes and no. Yes and no. We have had, you met 2 students here. So we had an earlier version that had a very different focus. This time the focus is going to be somewhat different and the curriculum is completely different. So in that sense, it is a new experiment.
Don't get worried about the word experimental. It's not like you are the students are experimental rats or something. We have been working on the curriculum and program and faculty for the last year and a half, and we had the old other humanities program running, and we know how these students come prepared or how they react to these things. So there's a lot of experience here, and it's after much thought, much planning, this is being done. So that experimental should take it as a positively, not as not well done or something.